Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Marie Kato. Iga Świątek, Poland's star tennis player and currently world number 3, is drawing attention among fans and tennis professionals. And this time, not because of her incredible performance, but rather because of the attitude and indifference to her Wimbledon achievements. Joining us now to tell us more about what might be happening behind the scenes for Iga Świątek is Tomasz Iwański, former professional tennis player and coach. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
So, Iga surprised everyone at her post-Wimbledon press conference, where she was very candid and she admitted that she doesn't care about her results. Where is that coming from?
Well, that's a good question. It's hard to judge where it exactly came from, but I wouldn't pay much attention to it. Iga is very addicted to her results, and she always really cared a lot about them. And maybe she just tries to change something in her attitude. But I still don't think that it was, maybe she was just a little bit disappointed, but I really don't think that it was kind of extremely serious, I mean, it was serious at that moment, but I don't think she really meant it. She probably tries not to care that much about the result, but she puts a lot of pressure on herself. And that sentence was probably connected with that state of mind. But she just said it, that was like sort of a
off-the-cuff comment.
Straight answer. Yeah, the comment to the question, which was maybe annoying for her. She's obviously disappointed with her results, with her performances. But I wouldn't pay a lot of attention to that sort of phrase.
There have been comments that Świątek has appeared very absent on the court, unengaged when she has been playing. Obviously, as a professional tennis player, what are your thoughts about that? What are your observations of her recent performance?
I think it's totally opposite. I think she's basically too engaged and caring too much about every single mistake she does. So I definitely wouldn't call it unengaged. It's totally opposite. I think she just, for last year and a half, maybe even 2 years, she just cannot find the proper balance between that sort of, being relaxed on court and at the same time being very focused. I think this just changed. When she was playing well, she had that incredible attitude. She was focused very much, and she didn't pay. Basically, she just, to cut it short, she just pays too much attention to the mistakes she makes. And tennis is a game of mistakes, and the most important thing in the game is to be able to handle them properly. And she just shows recently that she's not being capable of doing so. So that's her main problem. That's the main issue in her game right now.
But there were a lot of hopes when she brought her new tennis coach, Francisco Roy, on board. He trained with Nadal previously. There were a lot of hopes about what might happen about her performance. What do you think about that relationship? He, I think, has made a lot of efforts into trying to work with her. He tried to engage with her during her performance in Wimbledon. What do you think about that relationship? Do you think that perhaps they're mismatched for some reason?
It's first of all, it's still a very short period of time to be able to judge that. In the long term, we will see in a while. But she's been going through a lot of things, through a lot of troubles, and she chose Francisco because obviously she's a very good friend with Rafa Nadal. He is her idol. She admires him very much, and I'm pretty sure, not knowing all the details, but I'm pretty sure that he was the one who suggested that choice. And Francesco could have been a superb coach for Rafa, but it doesn't mean that he will be a great coach for Iga. Only the time can tell. But it doesn't matter what the coach does. It always depends on the attitude and self-belief and the way the player behaves and takes and understands the the tips from the coach. So I don't really, it's very hard to judge when you're not inside the process, when you're not inside the team. It's very difficult to judge from the outside how it really looks like. So I don't know if they need time. I don't know if I have no clue if something will improve. For now, I think, and it's not really hard to judge, but I think that she's not extremely happy with her results and performances, and I think Francisco has a similar opinion. They're obviously not happy yet with what they achieved and where they went, but it doesn't mean that it will not change in a blink of an eye during the next tournament or the tournament after. So time will tell.
You say that Iga Świątek has been going through a lot of troubles. Can you give us some insight as to what that might be?
Well, she was an absolutely top player, dominator for 3 years, and no one could, basically no one could get even close to her. And she has that's a combination of factors. She has a lot of self-expectations. She has a lot of pressure from the outside. She knows what kind of results she already made in her career. And even if you look, the advisors keep on telling you that you shouldn't have think about it, it always stays somewhere deep inside your soul, somewhere deep inside your head. And it's very difficult to get that rid of your head sometimes. So, plus, again, I think she settles her expectations very high, and it's not as easy as, you can easily say that, I'm not expecting anything. I will not worry about my results. I'll just do my job. It's very easy to say, but sometimes it's just much, much, much more difficult to do than just say it out. It sounds obvious, but again, she's a great player. She achieved a lot already in her career, more than most of the players ever will achieve. So, you've got to remember that the human's organism is something like a battery, and it also has its limits. So the battery can just get I'm not saying tired, but just out of energy. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that it is in Iga's case, but we've seen such a cases before. I hope it's not a case, and I hope she will find her way in the nearest future. But it's easy to say that she has to change something in her game, because the others are also changing. The others are knowing her game better. That's also one of the factors. The other players kind of got used to her game. Their coaches figured out how to play, what are her weaknesses. So there is a lot of factors, and if you combine all these factors, that's why you're figuring out. That's why it's so difficult for Iga nowadays.
Now, I wanted to move on to a little bit of a technical aspect, because, here in Poland, we think that Iga is absolutely the top of her game. She's at the top and she will stay at the top forever. But is it possible for Świątek to fall out of the top 10 in the overall WTA ranking, the 52-week rolling ranking, if she can't actually turn her game around before the end of the season?
All scenarios are possible. That's just one of the options. But I wouldn't care that much about the rankings. Rankings don't play. If she finds the balance in her game, plus, I don't want to get too too specific in terms of technical details, but she obviously has to add something to her game, but something has a really wide range of meanings. So she basically has to find the way to add something new to her way and make it a surprise for her opponents.
There's a lot of
And
questions,
they have to...
if I may. There are a lot of questions about Iga Świątek's psychologist, especially here in Poland. Do you think that perhaps Daria Abramowicz might actually be the greatest support to her, as Iga Świątek claims, or do you think, from your professional perspective, that she may actually be a bit of an obstacle and maybe someone fresh should come onto the scene for her?
You know what? I really, not because I'm afraid of anything, but I really don't feel qualified enough to judge that question. I look at it the way that it's the player who makes the final decision, and if Iga says that it's been very useful for her, that means that it is useful for her. On the other hand, from my point of view, I think that their relation is, I'm looking for the right word, very unique in the world of sports, because in general, the place of psychologist is not, I was trying to use the word slightly different, but it's not really slightly. It's very different from the position that Mrs. Abramowicz is at Iga's team. So, but I really don't want to go any farther with my thoughts or conclusions, because again, I don't feel qualified enough to judge that. Because I just don't have enough information, so I can't tell you, I can't answer that question straight away.
Okay, we'll leave it there then. Tomasz Iwański, former professional tennis player and coach, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
And that's all for World Talks. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned on TVP World for much more news and analysis. Goodbye.